All right, hi everyone. Today I'm going to be building a rock, paper, scissors game. Hopefully it shows you some techniques, and it's also maybe a little bit fun to make a little game. I saw one of the students had a crack at building the game by themselves, so that's a great idea. If you ever want to do that, if we show a GIF of something that we're going to make, then you can always have a crack at making it yourself. I thought that was quite a cool idea. But here's the basic game. Can everyone hear me, by the way? Everything okay? Can you see my screen and hear me? Great. All right, so this is what we're going to build. What happens is you hit play. It says rock, paper, scissors, and you need to select an item in the rock, paper, scissors game. And a random choice is made by the computer. And in this case, I lost. And I'll try to play a different one. I lost again. Okay, stick with paper. Yes. Okay. So we can see the game works, and hopefully it'll go easy enough. Sorry, let's move that out of here. All right, so I'm not going to focus too much on the HTML and CSS because there's a fair amount to get through in the JS. So if you look at the HTML, I've just got a play button. I've got a game, which is where I'm going to put the options for the rock, paper, scissors, so the icons and that. I've got a result, so somewhere that says who won or who lost, and a counter, and that's going to be for the rock, paper, scissors, the little message there in the quotation marks. Okay, got some basic styling here, which is all pretty simple. So nothing too crazy there. And then here I've got an array of objects. I decided to make my game editable. So I didn't hard code in that it's definitely rock, paper, scissors. My son likes to play weird versions of rock, paper, scissors. So I thought it would be a fun thing that you could kind of edit the things. And you can see that there's a name, there's a selection of what it beats, and then an icon. And so the first thing that I want to do is I'm going to select the game. Maybe I'll just make it below, it might be easier. And I'll call it game container. And it has a class of game. And just let's start off with console logging that out so we can see what's happening there. Okay, so if I just look at my console, I can see that element game is being selected. And if I look in my console here, so I'm working in Firefox, by the way. So if I just zoom in there, you can see this is in my console. And there's the element that I've selected. And you can see that one of the properties is inner HTML, right? And that's what I want to update and add to. So the inner HTML of that element is what I'm going to update. Okay. So I can say that, so I want to add the icons for each item in this game. So I'm going to say game options. It is game options. Yeah. Game options are for each. I think I'm going to call it option. Maybe that makes more sense because it's not a game, it's an option. And we'll say game container dot inner HTML plus equals. And for now, let's say option dot icon. Option dot icon. And there you can see that I get my rock, my paper, and my scissors appearing on the page. I'm just going to make them a bit bigger because they're quite small. What I also want to do is I'm going to use a checkbox. I mean, a radio button, sorry. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to actually put these icons inside of labels. And what it's going to allow me to do is be able to, when a user selects a different option, it just toggles off. So it's kind of written into the HTML that I'm toggling one on and one off using a radio button. So I'm going to quickly create that. So I'm going to make an input type of radio and name of option. What I also want to add in here is I'm going to add in some data. So a data attribute for which item this is. So I'm going to add some specific data, and the specific data I want to add is I want to add which item it beats. Okay, hopefully that will all make sense. I'll just build it and then we can have a look and see. So I'm going to say beats and say option dot beats, and I'll set it to have an ID of option dot name. Okay, and then inside my label, I'm going to say that. So the way that I can link a label together is by matching the ID with the for value. So I can say option dot name, right? So it'll have the same ID and the same value on the for attribute there. Okay, and around that, I'll have my icon and I'll close the label. And then I just want to increase the size of those. So I'm going to say label font size of, let's say 60 pixels. I could be doing this in rem or ems. So forgive me if you want a better option. Say 3M. I don't know, maybe that's better. I don't know. I probably actually wanted to just be pixels because, but anyway. So that's that. And you can see here, because I've got a radio button, if I click, it selects a different option each time. You'll notice that I'm able to click the label. I don't have to click the radio button itself. I can actually click the label that it's attached to. If I didn't have this for working here, so let's just remove that for now. You can see that if I click the label, nothing happens, but it does work if I click the specific input. But that's one, not very neat. So if you're ever making a form, it's always better to make sure that that ID and form is matched up. But also because I'm actually not going to have this icon, this radio showing on the actual page. I don't want to. I just want the user to be able to click the labels to select the different items. Okay. So I'm going to just switch that off for now. So we can always switch it back on if we need. But there, I'm just going to hide those inputs there. I didn't add a class. Let me just quickly add that class. So, and that's a class of option. There we go. So now we're able to select those, even though we can't currently see which one is being selected. If you're familiar with the checkbox hack, then you're probably familiar with what I'm going to do next. And that is to say that there's an input type of type of radio, and it is checked. Then I want the label to have a specific, I'm going to add a color. And let me just grab the color that I chose. And you can see now that when I select the different icons, it's changing that color. So I'll just quickly so there you can see it's displaying again, and whenever it changes, whichever one's checked, it then I want that hidden anyway. Okay. I also want by default that the game is hidden. So I only want the game to appear once the user clicks play. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to say that, because I've got this class of game, so I can say .game display none. Okay, so I've got this game display none. And now if I click play, nothing happens. So what I want to do is I now want to select this button, and I want to have an on-click event that runs whenever someone clicks play. All right, so I'm just going to get that button. It's called play. Just grab that there. I'll say play button. Play. Okay. And we'll go down here and we say play button. On click, and we want it to run a function. And I'm just going to say it works. Right. So now if I look at my console, clear that. If I click play, I can see that that function has run. Right. So whenever someone now clicks play button, a function runs, something happens. And I don't really want it to say it works in the console. What I would like is for it to display the game. So I can say that I want game container. Let me quickly log game container and we'll quickly have a look, see what's happening. Right, so now that function will have run. If I look at my console, again, I can see that element which I'm selecting, which is that game container. And you can see that it has styles. And one of the styles that it has is display. And I would like the display to be set to block. So I'm going to say game container style dot display equals block. So now if the user clicks play, it now shows the game and I'm able to select one of those options. All right. So now what I'd like to do is I want to create a timer. And what I want to do is I want to have a timer that runs to count out the on my counter, right? So that it can say rock, paper, scissors. Okay. And the way that I can do that is with a set interval. So let's have a look at that. Right, it is going to be inside my, so when I click this play button, I want something to run for 3 seconds and then stop running. Okay. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to create a variable. Yeah, I think that makes sense. So I'm going to have a variable here called array item. And I'm going to create a variable called timer. Set interval. Run the following function. And you set the amount of time that it should run each time. And let's quickly console log that, and we can see what happens when we do that. Okay, so currently nothing's happening in our console, but when we click play, it starts console logging hello every second. So that's this is an amount of milliseconds, right? And so each second now, it's running the following code. Now, what I'd like it to do is I would like it to add the array item. So I want to add rock, paper, scissors. Again, the reason I'm doing it this way, let me just quickly make that a really long time. I want to be able to edit this and change what gets said. So I could hard code it in to have it show rock, paper, scissors. But I think that it's nicer if it can be dynamic. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to select this counter element that I've created over here. So I'm going to call it counter, and it has a class of counter, like that. And I'm going to say that I wanted to counter dot HTML, and I wanted to equals, and I wanted to have quotes. So kind of like as someone is saying it, we'll say game options. And I'll start off with the one at position 0, so we can just have a look at what's happening here. All right, so now let's have a look and see what happens. If I click play, it's set to be crazy time. Okay. So if I click there, it says rock, and what's currently happening is that it's only ever showing me the item rock. Let me again just set that to be crazy time. So what I can do is I can increase this array item number. And so to do that, I can say that I wanted to increase array item by 1 each time. So this is a shorthand. I could say array item equals array item plus 1. But what I'm going to do there is I'm just going to say that I wanted to increase by 1 each time. So then I can use that as a variable here. So instead of it being just position 0, right? So that's position 0, that's position 1, and that's position 2. So what I can do now is I can say array item, put it in there. And now let's see what happens. I'll just change that back to 1,000. And now it says rock, then changes to paper, then to scissors. But I start having a problem because it just keeps on running. And so if we had to console log this, right, we can so if we have a look in the console, click play. Again, there we go. Right, so now it says rock, paper, scissors, but then the problem is that it just keeps on running and it starts throwing an error because there's no item at that place. So let me just do this. So what we can do is we could use another method called clear interval. And what we can do is we can run a check. And what we'll do is we'll check if array item is equal to game options dot length -1. So what I'm saying is that if it's got to an array item number that is one less than the game options length, then what I wanted to do is I wanted to stop running. So I'm going to tell it to clear interval. And because I've created this variable called timer, I can pass that in. And it will then look for a function called timer that's running, and it will clear that and stop it running anymore. Okay, so let me set this back to 1,000. And now we have rock, paper, scissors, and then it stops running. Okay, it's run for all the items in the array, and it's going to stop at that point. Okay, so that's how we can get that little timer going there. The next thing that we need to do is we need to check who's won. And what we can do is that after that has finished running, what we're going to do is we're now going to use something called set timeout. So set interval, run something every certain amount. So you can see there that's getting passed in. That's the amount of time that it should take in between running the function each time. And then we're going to look at set timeout. Okay, so this is another method. Takes in a function, and it also takes in the amount of time. So we set that to be 4,000, and console log. It's been 4 seconds. Okay, so clear that. And now if we click play, gives me an error. What am I doing wrong here? 925. There we are. Small O in timeout. There we go. Okay, let me just clear that now. All right, let's quickly try to do that again. Let me save here. Hopefully everyone's following along. I'm trying to give detail where there needs to be detail. But okay, let's have a look here. So now it runs 1 second, 2 seconds, 3 seconds, and then it's been 4 seconds, right? And so the set timeout runs after there has been 4 seconds. But what I want to do is I want to generate a random number at this point. And that's going to be able to allow me to figure out which item the computer has chosen from this list, from this array. Okay. So to do that, we can use, let me create a variable. I want to quickly, hopefully show something here, right? So we're going to say random number. What we can say is we can math.random, and I want to log that to the console. So console.log random number. That's going to generate a random number between 0 and 1. So, okay, so we click rock, paper, scissors, and it generates a random number between 0 and 1 for me. I could do that again. And again, it generates a random number for me. But I don't really have an item at 0.587444, etc. And so what I can do is I can use another method that will round this number off. Okay, let's have a look at what happens now. So rock, paper, scissors, and it rounds it to 0 because that is the nearest number. So what we need to do is we actually need to times this random number by the range that we're hoping to get numbers in. So I want a number between 0 and 2, right? So I want an item either at position 0, position 1, or position 2. And so I'm going to times it by 3 to be able to get a random number that is between 0 and 1. So this math.floor here, that's just rounding the number off. So I'll quickly take that away and we just have a look at what happens here. Clear. And that's 1.01, 2.5. And then when I use math.floor, it's going to round that number off for me. And then I get the item at position 0, 1, or 2. Okay, so that's how I'm going to get the computer to randomly choose one of those. So that means that I could say that the computer choice is equal to game options. Then I want a random number as the index of my array, and then dot name. And then I'm going to log computer choice to the console. Clear. Let me open that in the console, sorry. Play, rock, paper, scissors. The computer has chosen rock. Run that again. Rock, paper, scissors. And the computer has chosen paper this time. Okay, so that's how we can randomly get the computer to choose something. All right. So now we're going to use some conditional statements to check whether, well, first we actually need to check what I've selected, right? So what we can do is let's go here, and I'm going to say selection. And I'm going to look for an input with name of option. To just be single quotes might be easier. And I want it to be checked. Right, so it's going to look for an item in the page that is an input with the name of option, which is being marked as checked. And I'm going to just log that to the console. So I'm going to hit play. I'm going to select paper. And you can see there that it's logged the item to the console there. So I've got, you can see that it is paper and paper beats rock. So there I've got my paper beats rock and I've got this ID of paper. So I know that I have selected paper. Can try and run that again, play. And this time I'm going to select scissors. And there you can see that I've selected scissors and it beats paper. All right. We would have a problem though if, well, actually I need to clear the selection first. So each time I want to play, I will need to clear whether one of these have been selected. So otherwise it can just indefinitely just be selecting. I can just indefinitely select paper. Maybe that's something that your game wants, but what we can do there is we can run a check. So here we can say if document dot row selector and grab that. Right, so If there is an item that has been checked, then we actually just want that to be set to, we want it, okay, I'll just quickly log that to the console quickly. We'll just have a quick look and see what's coming out there. Clear. Right, I'm going to select rock. So it's selected rock. Now, if I hit play again, it tells me, if I look in the console here, right? So it's telling me now that this is the item that I selected originally. And you can see that it has checked set to true, right? So that's the item that I'd selected and it is set to true. So what I can do is I can tell it to actually set that to false. Right, I can say dot checked equals false. So now, if I go play, a bit hard to see everything. It's telling me there's an error somewhere. If anyone spots what I've done wrong, welcome to shout out. I think that's, there we are. Okay, so I'm not going to select anything. And you'll see, it should throw some error into the console. Null. You can see I just get set null there because I haven't selected anything. But if I go play, choose paper, that's great. And if I run play again, it unselects the option that I had previously selected. So that each time when I click play, it resets the game so that there aren't any checked items. Okay. But what I want to do now is that it will cause an error if I haven't selected anything. And so what I want to do is I want to say that if there has been a selection, so if that is correct, and there is actually an item that has been selected, then I can create a variable for it, and I'll log it to the console. Else, I'm going to tell the user that they need to select something. And I think it would probably make sense to go into results. So let me create a variable for that. And I'm going to say else result dot inner HTML equals choose an option. Okay, because we want to, in case the user doesn't select something, we want something to display there to tell them why the game hasn't worked. Okay, so if we hit play, the game runs, but we don't have anything there, then it says, please choose an option. Okay. What I'd also like is I'd also just like this counter variable to be hidden, right? So once it's finished running, we don't need to see scissors anymore. So we can just tell it to go away. Okay, so it runs rock, paper, scissors. Please choose an option. Okay, but now let's deal with what happens if the user has selected something, right? So I'll play this and they've selected paper, look in the console, and it tells me that I have selected paper. So I can run a check on that. And I can see, maybe what I want to add into the result is the fact I want to tell the user what they chose and what the computer chose. So I'm going to say in result dot inner HTML equals you chose, and let me just neutral makes sense. You chose, and it's selection dot ID, I think. Makes sense. And I can say computer chose, and that is called computer choice. Remove that console log there. So you chose that, the computer chose that. Right, so if we play that, I'm going to choose rock. So you chose rock, the computer chose scissors. Okay, so now we're able to get and figure out what I've chosen and what the computer has chosen. And the next thing we want to do is we want to test who won the battle. Maybe we pop this in a paragraph, makes sense. So here we're going to check things, right? So the first thing that we want to check is if selection.id is equal to computer choice, right? So if we know that if I chose rock and the computer chose rock, then it's even Stevens. So we'll say result dot inner HTML equals, and we could say it was a tie. You both played, and then I can choose either the computer choice or the selection ID. So I'll just choose selection.id. Okay, so if they're both the same, we can see if that happens. That would be great if it happened by fluke. Okay, well, we'll test it when it happens, but we know that we at least have a conditional statement for if the selection that I've given matches the selection that the computer has made, then it's a tie. Right, the next option that's available to us is if the selection, so I've got this data set here, right? So over here, remember I've got this beats and I added it to my data. So before I write that out, let's just quickly console.log selection.dataset. Let's have a look at what we're dealing with there. All right, so if I click play and I've chosen paper, I'm going to look at my console. And you can see here that it says that it beats rock. If I play this again, I choose rock. Rock beats scissors. So I'm expecting to see, there we are. It says that it beats scissors. So I know that if I could say dataset.beats, play that, play. So I've got paper. And you can see that it beats rock. Paper beats rock. Okay, so I can say that the other option is that selection.datasets.beats equals computer choice, in which case we can say that we won instead of that it was a draw. So say won. And then we can say selection.id beats computer choice. Okay, let's run that. So I've got paper. I've chosen paper. You chose paper. The computer chose scissors. It's not coming through. Oh, possibly, yeah, because I didn't win. Okay, so we both played rock. you chose scissors, the computer chose rock. So in that case, the computer beats me, which is our final option. So we can say either it's a tie or I beat the computer. The only other option available is that the computer's beaten me. So I can say here that I can say you lost. And it's computer choice beats selection.id. Okay, so if we play that, it's telling me there's an error. Sorry, that's blocking the code. Okay, so if I click play, I choose scissors. It was a tie. You both played scissors. Try it again. Rock. You won. Rock beats scissors. Okay. So I think what we actually want is we want this to add on, because we've got this you chose and the computer chose, which is getting overwritten now. So if we rather add to the inner HTML, then we can at least know what the user has chosen. And then I also want to just set when the play button is clicked. So over here, be great if result that is cleared. So whatever the result of the last game was gets cleared, so we don't have to see the result of the last game, because that doesn't make much sense. So we're going to hit play. I'm going to choose paper. So there it gives me the breakdown. You chose paper, the computer chose rock, you won, paper beats rock. And I think that that's everything in our game. So it has all of the, so now if I click play, there I've chosen rock. So there we chose rock. The one thing I could add here is maybe a little bit of styling. So I could say that if it was a tie, I could add a class of tie, class of one, and a class of lost. And then I just style those to have a color. Just add those in here in the CSS. So there, I think it's like an orange color if it's a tie, a green color if it's one, and then red if it's lost. So I have paper. See there now, because it's red because I lost. Are there any questions, things that I could go over? I hope that wasn't too difficult to follow. I felt like we were going through quite a bit. I think the interesting things were the set interval, the set timeout, and then clearing the interval. Cool, thanks so much. Yeah. Is there any questions? Things I could go over? Was everyone able to follow that? I will post the video, so then hopefully you can go over it again if there's things you'd like to go over. One of the nice things here was that kind of using of the data attributes. So if you want to be able to store some data about something inside the HTML that you can then extract later on, that can be a good option for you there. Yeah, and then here I'm just using fonts awesome, by the way. Any other things? Otherwise, I'm going to wrap up there. Cool. Well, seems like there weren't any questions. So yeah, hopefully that's been useful and interesting. And yeah, I think it was a really cool idea that the one student decided that they would give it a shot themselves. So I think maybe that could be a fun thing to do, as we could send out a why don't you all try make this thing, and then we chat together the following week and see how people solved a similar issue, you often find that there's many ways of solving things. And you also get blocked into not corners, but you're forced to make certain decisions. For example, like the fact that I decided to make my game options into an array that I could edit. Right. So, I mean, this could be like rocket launcher, right? And then everything in my app now changes based on that. Like rocket launcher should be everything, right? But if I've got rocket launcher, you chose rocket launcher, how could a paper lose to a rocket launcher anyway? So yeah, hopefully that's been interesting. All right. Bye for now, everyone.